Imagine a world where people still take the time to put pen to paper and express their gratitude through handwritten thank you notes. It may seem like a relic of the past, but research suggests that this simple act can have a profound impact on our relationships and our own personal growth. In fact, psychology says that people who still handwrite thank you notes possess 8 rare qualities that make them irresistible to others. But here's where it gets interesting. These qualities aren't just inherent traits, but are actually developed through the practice of handwriting thank you notes. As we delve into the world of analog gratitude, we'll explore the unexpected psychology behind this timeless practice and why it's making a comeback in the digital age. The conventional wisdom tells us that handwritten thank you notes are quaint but impractical, a waste of time in our efficiency-obsessed culture. However, Dr. Sarah Chen, a behavioral psychologist at Northwestern University, has spent the last decade studying gratitude expression in the digital age, and her findings challenge everything we thought we knew about thank you notes. According to Dr. Chen, people who maintain the practice of handwriting thank you notes exhibit a constellation of psychological traits that set them apart in meaningful ways. The first quality that emerged from her research is something she calls temporal generosity, the ability to invest time in relationships without expecting immediate returns. In our world of instant gratification, this trait has become increasingly rare. People who handwrite thank you notes are comfortable with delayed reciprocity, understanding that relationships unfold over years, not news cycles. This reminded me of my own thank you habits. After my wedding, my husband and I had divided our thank you note duties, and I procrastinated on mine, eventually sending most via text message weeks later. The guilt had nagged at me, but I justified it as being realistic about modern life. Now, Dr. Chen's research was making me reconsider. The second quality she identified was enhanced mindfulness. The physical act of writing by hand activates different neural pathways than typing, forcing a slower pace that creates space for deeper reflection. When you're handwriting a thank you note, you're not just expressing gratitude, you're actually experiencing it more fully. This is evident in the way my friend Marcus, a millennial who religiously sends handwritten thank you notes, describes the practice as almost meditative. The third trait was perhaps the most surprising: cognitive flexibility. People who handwrite thank you notes score higher on tests measuring the ability to switch between different concepts and adapt to new situations. Dr. Chen hypothesizes that this is because handwriting requires constant micro-adjustments, pressure, spacing, letter formation that keep the brain actively engaged in a way that typing doesn't. As I delved deeper into the research, I discovered the work of Dr. James Pennebaker at the University of Texas, who has studied expressive writing for decades. He introduced me to the fourth quality: emotional authenticity. There's something about handwriting that strips away our digital masks, allowing us to express genuine emotion. The imperfection of handwriting, the crossed-out words, the slightly shaky letters, actually communicates authenticity in a way that perfect digital text cannot. This resonated with a memory from my childhood, where my grandfather, a taciturn man who rarely expressed emotion verbally, would send me handwritten notes for every birthday and graduation. His handwriting was terrible, but those notes meant more to me than any gift. The fifth quality identified in the research was other focus, a genuine orientation toward the needs and experiences of others. In our age of personal branding and self-promotion, people who take time to handwrite thank you notes demonstrate a counter-cultural commitment to acknowledging others' contributions to their lives. Dr. Robert Kim, a social psychologist at Yale, has studied patience in the digital age and identified the sixth quality: the ability to delay gratification, not just for oneself, but in service of others. People who handwrite thank you notes are essentially choosing the harder path, to make someone else feel valued. In a world optimized for efficiency, this is a radical act. I experienced this firsthand when I decided to experiment with handwriting thank you notes for a month. The first few were torture, but something shifted as I continued. The act of slowing down began to feel less like an inconvenience and more like a gift to myself and to the recipients. The seventh trait was particularly intriguing: enhanced memory formation. Research shows that people who handwrite thank you notes have better recall of the gifts they received and the people who gave them. The physical act of writing creates stronger neural pathways than typing, embedding the gratitude more deeply in memory. My Aunt Helen, who has maintained extensive correspondence through handwritten notes for over 50 years, embodies the eighth quality: comfort with intimacy. When you send a handwritten note, you're sending a piece of yourself. Your handwriting is as unique as your fingerprint, making it vulnerable and personal in a way that digital communication can never be. This vulnerability creates stronger bonds between people, with recipients of handwritten thank you notes reporting feeling more connected to the sender than those who receive digital thanks. As I reflected on all these qualities, I realized that the debate about handwritten versus digital thank you notes was really a proxy for a larger question about how we want to live. Do we optimize for efficiency or connection? Do we choose the path of least resistance or the path of greatest meaning? But here's the thing. It's not just about the notes themselves, but about the kind of people we become when we practice this kind of gratitude. The research suggests that people who choose to handwrite thank you notes in 2025 aren't just practicing good manners. They're cultivating qualities that make them more present, more connected, and more fully human in an increasingly digital world. And this is the part most people miss: the fact that these qualities aren't just inherent traits, but are actually developed through practice. As my month-long experiment with handwritten thank you notes came to an end, I found myself changed in unexpected ways. The practice had forced me to slow down, to be more intentional about gratitude, to connect more deeply with the people in my life. The qualities that psychologists identified in habitual thank you note writers: temporal generosity, mindfulness, cognitive flexibility, emotional authenticity, other focus, patience, enhanced memory, and comfort with intimacy, weren't just traits they possessed, but skills they were actively developing through practice. So, what's your take on this? Do you think handwritten thank you notes are a thing of the past? Or can they still play a role in our digital lives? Do you have a practice of writing thank you notes? Or is this something you'd like to start? Let us know in the comments. Perhaps the most profound realization came when I received a response to one of my handwritten notes. My former professor, now in her 80s, called me in tears, saying, "No one writes anymore. Your note made me feel like I still matter." In that moment, I understood that handwritten thank you notes aren't about nostalgia or propriety. They're about affirming human dignity in an age that often forgets it. The wisdom I'd initially dismissed as outdated revealed itself to be urgently contemporary. In a world where we can communicate instantly with anyone, anywhere, the choice to slow down and write by hand becomes a form of resistance, not against technology itself, but against the assumption that faster is always better, that efficiency trumps connection, that convenience matters more than care. My grandmother was right all along, though not for the reasons I'd assumed. Her careful cursive wasn't just about maintaining traditions. It was about maintaining her humanity. And perhaps that's the most irresistible quality of all. In an age of artificial intelligence and algorithmic relationships, people who handwrite thank you notes remind us what it means to be beautifully, inefficiently, authentically human.